I don't know. The BYU Parker Kingston story is a big deal.
Hope you enjoyed your break from Big 12 content.
Yeah, I think this is and of course, the first question that was asked of me about Parker Kingston is, does BYU have a culture problem? Because now, if you did not hear this story, this is adult story time. This is not ideal. This is very different than what happened with Jake Retzloff, and everybody comparing this Parker Kingston story to Jake Retzloff. There's no comparison. So Parker Kingston has been charged with felony rape in St. George, Utah. And if you don't know the proximity or the geography of Utah, St. George, Utah is about 4.5 hours north. Provo is about 4.5 hours north of St. George. And it is a different world. It essentially is the desert. It is a different climate, a different world, but it is a booming metropolis. Parker Kingston, allegedly, a year ago, almost to the day, Parker Kingston, a year ago, is alleged to have sexually assaulted a woman. And now they are saying this happened on February 23rd, 2025. And then a woman went to the St. George Regional Hospital and reported it to police. And I think it's important to note that Parker Kingston has not only been arrested and is in custody, he is on a no bail hold. And that means they're not playing around. That means they have real, concrete evidence. The police investigated this. They referred it to the district attorney. The district attorney thought so much of it to move forward with charges and was granted a no bail hold, which means Parker Kingston is not eligible for pretrial release. Let that sink in. They believe he's such a threat to the community, he's not eligible for pretrial release. That's what no bail means. This is very serious. This is not going away. This is not going to be a civil settlement and Parker Kingston transfers to Tulane. That's not what this is. This is terrible, is what this is. And now the question has to be asked, does BYU have a culture problem? And the answer is, I don't know. I think that's a big stretch. But how do you get away from the fact that this is twice in less than a year?
Yeah, well, and it's two of your best players, right? I mean, it's not we're not talking about figures in the program who are of low influence here. I mean, these are two guys in Retzloff and Parker Kingston who are top tier guys, you know, definitely faces of your program. You think BYU football. At one point, you thought Jake Retzloff after his transferring. I think that's kind of faded away now. But at one point, it was Jake Retzloff. Parker Kingston was definitely in that conversation. And I think that the trouble is that I completely agree. The two cases couldn't be more different. I think Jake Retzloff's was, you know, civil, more about money, more about, you know, someone trying to take an opportunity, because his stuff has all been dismissed. He's completely moved on. You know, that's just that all worked itself out.
And it was dismissed with prejudice.
Yeah. So like
it's over. It can never be refiled.
It's pretty clear that what took place there was kind of what everyone thought. And I understand the initial reaction of, well, hey, like, you know, the Retzloff thing has shades of this Kingston thing now. And, you know, now this is two guys in 1 year. But if you dive into it, I think it's harsh to say it's two guys in 1 year. I think the Retzloff thing is not even close to what this is. This is somebody who committed a crime allegedly. They have enough evidence to hold him. He did this in St. George,
Yeah.
Washington County, not in Utah or Salt Lake County. And the other thing that I think really is not helping his case here from a social media standpoint is the fact that he and his fiance are on the jumbotron the other night, announcing that they got engaged, and then this comes out. So, I think that do they have a culture problem? I'm not quite ready to say BYU has a culture problem, but is there a need for steps to be taken? Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that inside the program, this has to be talked about. This has to be
Yes.
you have to talk about this. You have to. I would just be completely transparent about it, bro.
You have to do far more than talk. I think if this is not a shocking, culturally changing incident, and it is twice in a year. If you are the administration at BYU, you can't get away from the things that we know happened. And when you look at the Retzloff situation, it is not this in any way, shape, or form. There is no comparison between Jake Retzloff and Parker Kingston, the allegations against the two. Both of it involves sexual assault against a female. You can't argue that. Jake Retzloff, in court documents, was accused of a heinous sexual assault. I think that in and of itself, on top of what Parker Kingston is, and when the details in these court filings come out, it is going to be ugly. Because you don't no bail hold a guy because he's accused of something. You no bail hold a guy because you think he's going to run and he's a threat to other people in the community. It's as simple as that.
Well, and I think to that point, the idea that this has been a year-long investigation, is a really fascinating development in the conversation because, I saw the initial reaction when this story popped off yesterday. Everyone was like, well, if this happened last year, what evidence could they possibly have? And it's like, what do you mean? What evidence could they possibly have? If they're holding him on no bail, that means they've deemed him a flight risk and a danger to the community, and they've got evidence enough to say, like we can prove he did this, which means there's either video, forensic evidence. I mean, they say straight up in the article they have forensic evidence, so we know they have that. But I'm guessing they've probably got a second level of evidence to say, like, hey, we have you.
Yeah, I don't even care. I am telling you, and I'm sure idiot Utah fan has built a fire and is dancing around this, and I don't care what we think. What I know is this is twice in a year that star football players at BYU have been accused of heinous sexual assaults. And there's no way to get away from that. There's no way to spin that. And if I am at BYU, and if I am an administrator at BYU, I am telling you now, we are bringing in educators, we are bringing in counselors, we are bringing in people to make sure that our athletic department is aware and educated about the circumstances of these cases, how to avoid these situations. Like, I am going all in on it, because 2 in a year when it's this kind of heinous crime cannot be just simply, well, boy, can you believe Parker? That's Parker Kingston. Boy, I can't believe it. No, that's not going to be good enough. These guys are superstars in our community. These guys are legends in our community. You cannot have this. You cannot this. Not only does BYU owe the community more than to do nothing. Not only does BYU owe the community more than to just say, well, that was Jake. He's no longer a student at BYU. That's not good enough. Oh, well, the authorities, there's an ongoing investigation. That's not good enough. The very fact that he's being held on no bail tells you this is a really, really nasty crime that he is accused of. That's not going to be good enough. You need to be proactive here and make sure that this never happens again. Because you have a bunch of entitled superstar athletes who are making millions of dollars. And if you believe just the surface reports, Parker Kingston is likely a predator. If you believe that Jake Retzloff did what he was accused of, that's predatory behavior. Now, I don't believe that, and I don't think the adjudication of that case showed that, but that doesn't matter. You have a duty, if you are BYU, to make sure that these young men are educated and understand. You need to help these young men deal with their fame, deal with their newfound riches, because they're not dealing with it well. That is the truth. And this isn't some, well, he's not a member. This is Parker Kingston and Jake Retzloff. So this has the hallmarks of BYU athlete written all over it. And you're not getting away from this. And BYU has to take a very strong position inside that athletic department. And I don't just mean football. I said athletic department. This means men and women. Educate them all. Educate them all. Because I think that's the bottom line. I don't know what else you would eat. Where else would you even begin?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's you know, they're gonna have to figure that out. I mean, I think that. Look, I think that football players are obviously the poster childs of your athletic department, and you can't have this happen in your athletic department. But I also think that from an athletic department standpoint, I mean, obviously it's been an interesting ride for Brian Santiago. It's been an interesting, couple of years here where you're sort of stepping into that role and you're following someone who was dominant in these situations, who was really good, who kept BYU kind of on the straight and narrow for a while, I felt like. And, I'm not saying anyone needs to be fired, but what I am saying is that if we're talking about 2 in a year, like, that's I'm almost forced to mention leadership, because I there's no getting away from the fact that I mean, I'm not sitting here saying it's Kalani's fault, but he's got a responsibility here. I'm not saying it's Brian's fault, but he's got a responsibility here.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it does double down on the problem that you're a faith-based institution, right? I mean, that part of it, is absolutely a piece of the puzzle. So I think that, look, I just think that BYU has to, I would prefer, like, I understand why, the initial statement is like, hey, there's an ongoing investigation, X, Y, and Z. Okay, I get that. I understand that. I wouldn't even expect them to say differently at this time. But I would expect them at some point to in some form or fashion, publicly acknowledge, hey, like, this is what we're doing about this. Like, we take this stuff really seriously. We're being proactive. Like, I would, like, if you're good enough at publicizing your football program and all their great things, you got to be good enough at publicizing what you're doing about fixing this. And that's what I would expect to see as this thing plays out. But it's frustrating that I feel like on a day when we're going to talk about like 5 different Big 12 angles that this conference is working on right now, that this story, I think, is really, really dominating the news today. Not the courts or this expansion story or what, like, no, this BYU thing is dominating the conversation. And I think that that's just unfortunate the way that worked out.
All right, let's get your thoughts on this, because I don't want to dwell on it. It is not something, I don't even like saying the words about that are associated with this. It is a heinous felony that Parker Kingston is being accused of. Oh, and look at that. The first thing I see when I go to the comments section is the eye patch has been filtered. And knowing the eye patch, I don't know why you still come here. I honestly don't know why you still come here. Like, I'm just going to tell you guys, this is not something to joke about. This is not something to laugh about. This is not something to, that's not what this is. I understand that we have a lot of Utah fans that watch this show. It's not funny. This is not, and especially after everything that Utah has been through with off-field issues. Joking about something like this, and this is why I always tell you guys, the eye patch is the worst of the worst, the dreg of our community. And we don't ban people. We don't, you'll never hear me read his comment again, ever. Because there's just, I mean, when you joke about this, because I'm assuming that when we're talking about a major crime at BYU and you get filtered, I'm going to assume you said something really stupid. Because that's what it takes to get filtered on this show. You have to be really, really stupid. And so the eye patch lived up to the brand.
As usual.
Unfortunately. Because it's just who certain, this is the hard part about BYU and Utah. It's who Utah fan is. And I just will never understand it. I will never understand how you can, and this is the same stuff that went on with the Retzloff situation, where Utah fan was celebrating, and this is, you don't celebrate somebody being sexually assaulted. I don't care what your perspective is. I don't care where you come from. It's not funny in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
It's just not funny. Right? Like, it's just not. And then you have James talking in code. James, nobody knows what this means. Do you understand that nobody knows what this means? I have no idea what MST means. Maybe I'm just not very smart.
I don't know what that means either.
Like,
for the record.
Not all Utah fans. I want us to beat the best on the field. It's not about.
But we're
football.
not talking about football, dude. That's the thing. Like, I think part of this Utah fan is just the flavor today, but I think that this conversation is like, dude, we're trying to have a conversation about, like yesterday on the show or any other day on the show. Whenever we're talking about something that you know clearly and definitively has two sides of the fence, and you know people can choose to be the way eye patch has been today. Like, it's tired. It's tired. It's just really tired, bro.
Yeah, I say this gently. This is why I hate the Holy War for a lot of reasons. I think once we get to game day and the game is played, I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's been a tumultuous, I would say, 2.5, 3 years for this rivalry. You know, I look back at, you know, like, again, for Utah, you know, your athletic director made a joke of himself, right? If we're going to sit here and pick on BYU, your athletic director has embarrassed himself multiple times in regards to college football. And you know, I think you've got that angle of it for Utah. You know, the Whittingham thing for Utah is we're going to talk about that later today. I think that that every day that goes by, in my heart of hearts, you know, I just feel like you messed that up. You know, and then on BYU's side, yeah, it's been you've put together several really good seasons, and Kalani and the program deserve credit for that. But you've got this stuff that's just rocky road after rocky road here, dude. Like, you're just making these really big mistakes off the field. And you know, so I just think it's rich that you have people who just want to talk about one side of it, because the truth is both of these programs haven't really accomplished anything. Both of them have competed for championships. Both have tried to get to the CFP, haven't been able to do it. One on one side of the fence, you lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl and were never the same. On the other side of the fence, you can't seem to get over the little brother mentality nationally, that people just don't think you're good enough to play in the CFP, even though the paper says you are. Like, you just both, like, they couldn't be more opposite in terms of culture, but they are the same. Like, if you look at them nationally, they both have problems. They're both trying to overcome those problems, and both of their fan bases don't want to talk about the problems.
Yeah,
Instead,
and
we're
it
going to talk
just
about other people.
it's just remarkable to me that such a special game destroys fan bases. And it's I don't have a dog in the hunt, frankly. Like, I'm a Notre Dame fan. We have our own set of fan base. That every fan base has it. But you just see it with Utah. I mean, idiots celebrating sexual assault at BYU.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the dregs of society.
But I would say, in all seriousness, I do think that the Tom Homo era was pretty elite. What he was able to get done, like the I would say that era under him was what will always be remembered as an era of progress. And this era so far under Brian Santiago, in my opinion, has been riddled with problems and trying to, it's everything from the volleyball situation to
Volleyball situation, right?
this to I mean, it's just one thing after
Well,
another right now.
this Parker Kingston thing, again, if you're just tuning in this morning, BYU, their best wide receiver. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Their best wide receiver, statistically speaking, their kick returner, like Parker Kingston, is accused of felony rape. And not only is he accused of it, he is charged with it. He is being held on a no bail hold. So, and this is in southern Utah. And again, as I was explaining, St. George is an exploding, Washington County in general. We go there all the time to play golf. Like,
beautiful.
I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of dude that's wandering the streets. This is the guy that, and the worst part about these situations, and we don't know the details, but again, I'm going to tell you, I've covered crime, for a lot of crime in my career. You don't get held with no bail unless they have rock solid evidence. So I'm guessing forensics, DNA, the witness or the victim, her conversations right out of the gate. She went to the hospital. She reported it to the police. Like, she's got to be very strong. Like, and this dude was in our communities, on our streets.
This is in my opinion, like, on the show, we talk all the time about guys falling at the feet of sex. We do all the time. Happens regularly. It's not a new topic on the show, but for me, this is an all-time, like, generational mess up for a college football player.
Yeah,
This
BYU's
is
got to take action, dude.
yeah. I mean,
I'm telling you.
I just can't emphasize enough. And I know that maybe it seems like I'm making a big deal about the geography of this, but like, if you're not familiar with the relationship St. George as a city has with Utah and Salt Lake County, it is, if Parker Kingston is in fact found guilty of this and he goes away, that would be really damaging. That would be like, hey, dude,
Devastating for our communities.
Yeah, you just had a guy who is one of the biggest names at BYU football go down to St. George, commit that level of crime, play the season, come back and play the season, and then in the offseason, it gets handled. Like, I don't know, man. I just think that it's just saying that this is not a good look is putting it lightly, and I just think it's really. I will be honest, I am frustrated that this is what we have to talk about today. It's really disappointing. It's really disappointing.
And he's not from St. George, is he?
I have no idea.
I want to say he's from.
Where's he from? I don't know.
I think he's from Roy. He's from like Ogden or Roy or something like that. I can look it up real quick. But he's from northern Utah. He's not from Because I remember when he got recruited. Let's see. Roy, Utah. He is from Roy, Utah. I remember when he got recruited. So yeah, I just the whole thing sucks. All right, let's get to the comments because I do want to move on. Let's see. Welcome to the nightmare. I think that Retzloff, they should have had conversations with their athletic department to be proactive about the education around this type of serious topic, because Jake Retzloff, I think a lot of people that know that situation feel like he got baited and he got Trevor Bauered. He got whatever you want to call it.
He did, but that's not the point.
No, and the point is, I agree, and this is why I said this earlier. It doesn't matter what you think happened in the Jake Retzloff situation. This was a huge talking point. And I think I even said this when it happened. Talk to your sons, talk to your daughters about this.
Yeah.
Because Jake Retzloff was messaging with a female who he did not know. And over a period of time, they continued to message. He had her over to his apartment the first time, allegedly, that they had met. He had her over to his apartment and they wound up, and he wound up in a jackpot over it.
He made a really bad decision because nobody was talking to him about making bad decisions.
Because those guys at that level, when you're the starting quarterback at a major university like BYU, you're untouchable. You're bulletproof. And you're just the exact opposite. You're a massive target. You are very exposed. You have everything to lose. But guys don't have that in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm telling you, like with this Parker Kingston thing, BYU has, I would go as far as to call it a fiduciary responsibility to all of their athletes, male and female, to everybody in our community.